record. Um, all right, you guys. Hi, and welcome to the Bridal Sessions. It is the March 21st edition, first day of spring. So happy spring. Wedding season is really starting to kick off. So that is exciting. Today, I wanted to talk about drama-free decision making. And the thing with weddings, as you guys all know already, is so many decisions have to happen, from really huge, like who are you marrying, to really tiny, like centerpieces or party favors, or whether to provide transportation to your guests. And then all the decisions sort of with coronavirus. Do we push it off? Do we do two weddings? Do we elope? Like all of that is causing a lot of the brides I'm talking to are in like decision overwhelm or decision fatigue. And the thing about deciding is that it can be really draining. And a lot of times it comes down to the bride. A lot of times the groom might defer a lot to the bride. People might defer a lot to the bride, which is nice to have that control, but then it can also feel like a burden because you're kind of sometimes feeling like you're in it alone. So I think first, it's important to really recognize that this is a decision heavy time in your life. Um, but it's a great time to reflect on, how do I make decisions and how can I get better at it? Because they're going to keep coming as your life does expand with having a husband now and a family and all of the other things you're going to embark on after you get married. So, one of the key points about decision making is realize that, like, when you're in a holding pattern and you're not deciding, like if you're procrastinating on making a decision, that in itself is a decision. And so, a lot of times when we're not making a decision, we just tell ourselves, well, I don't know. I'm confused or I need more information. Sometimes that's true. And so you have to get more information. But 9 times out of 10, it's not true. When we tell ourselves we're confused, it's really that there's some feeling we don't want to feel yet. There's some uncomfortable truth we've got to face. And that's, a lot of times it could be sort of what Kat and I were talking about maybe before. It's like, gosh, that a decision, on some level, a decision you want to make is going to disappoint someone else. So you're like, ugh, let me just wait a minute. The problem with waiting more is it causes you more stress and angst. And if it's going to be the decision you eventually make, like in that case, if you're going to elope, and it's important to take that time and that space to make sure you're really rooted in it and you and your fiance really want it. But then once you want it, you want to go ahead and make the decision so that you can tell people and have the hard conversations, let all that criticism come, because, or feedback or feelings, let it all come, because that's probably what you're avoiding. And sometimes we trick ourselves into saying, like, well, I don't know what I want. And it's funny because I do this in business. So it's like one of those things that, like, the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. Like, I always have to remind myself, I am not confused. I am not confused. It's just that I'm putting off this decision because I know it's going to cause this domino effect in my life that, right now I'd rather not deal with. So I think, especially in the wedding world where there are so many opinions and hopes and dreams, of other people kind of packed onto your day, um, you do know. And that's just this funny, like, little mantra I always tell myself. Because again, it's a thought in your head and it's a protective thought because it buys you time and it buys you a little peace, but you are not confused. It's just being ready to know and what that is going to bring with it. So yeah, if you're not making a decision, just try and figure out, what am I avoiding? What do I just don't, what is the person I don't want calling me saying what they say? What am I avoiding? And then get yourself in a place where you can then address that issue and at least know why you're procrastinating, because not deciding is a decision. The other thing about making decisions, I think where we do get tripped up is logic versus like intuition. And people are like, well, I only make intuitive decisions and I only make logical decisions because I'm a type A, and your pro and con list versus you're like, I had a feeling. Both, we need both. And some people try to throw out one and keep the other, but you actually need both. The thing is when to employ each one. So like your pro and con list is really good when you're looking at like, buying, if there is a florist and they both have the exact same style. So then we're just going to look, okay, just make the list. Okay, this one is going to offer this, this, and this. That one's going to offer this, this, and this. What is the best value? Because you love both of them. That's a pro and con list. Use your logic, make a decision that makes sense. The more intuitive decisions are usually around the bigger things and the things, like the question to elope or not. Or with the corona, so many people are like, I always wanted the big wedding, but I'm feeling like pulled to just do a quick Zoom wedding or do it. And it's like, but then their logical brain say like that you can't do that because you never thought that. So your logical brain will try to come in and like kidnap your intuition. And so those are the times whenever it's like bigger things in our life, where to move, who to marry, like all these things, you can't logic it. That's where you use your intuition and then use your logic for those ones that really are just calculations and smaller issues around something that you already know you want. So again, when you're making a decision about your wedding, let that intuition speak. And the way that your intuition is going to talk to you is again not through your mind. So you've got to get your mind. Oh, let me admit, Maria. Hi, Maria. Welcome. We're just talking about decisions. So the way to get your intuition to talk to you, because this is the thing, the intuition can get silenced so easily with over logic and other people's opinions. So the thing about it is you really want to be in touch with your body, which means you got to get your mind offline. So I don't know how like into like the mind body world you guys are, but it's like, exercise gets you into your body, meditation can get you into your body, whatever quiets your mind and gets you into your body. And then you're asking yourself, like, just literally, how does it feel? And it's like, you're using like you got to create like a body compass. And so you can think like, how does it feel when I think about something that makes me want to vomit? It's like that like resistant, like your body is just like, oh God, no. Some people feel it as like a clenching up, some people feeling as a pulling back, looking away. And then how does it feel like to see your fiance or to be in love? It's like you come forward, your body opens, it relaxes, your shoulders go down. So you have to kind of work. I work with my clients all the time on this, is like crafting your body compass so that you quickly know when you get that twinge. And we all know it. Sometimes we just forget it over the years as we like overthink things. And so finding that place where it lives in your body. Some people, their throat closes up. Some people's stomach tenses. Or like in the other way, when they see something they really do want and feel strongly about, it just feels like this feeling of like freedom and feeling of like unleashed and unbonded. Like that's the feeling of like, whoa, this is a thing I want. My intuition is just telling me yes, even though it doesn't make sense. Right? Like probably some of us, when we met the person that we marry, it's like my husband is like the least logical choice in so many ways, like for me, but it was right. And I knew it on that just really intuitive gut feeling level. And that's of course how I, hope all of you guys feel, is that was just, it was like, I couldn't not make that choice. It was like, it felt so in just a inevitability to it. And then, when you look back logically, I'm like, oh, this does make sense. We have all of these things in common and these ways that we see the world, but like on face value, he's like this Persian man. I've never met a Persian person in my life. Like it just nothing seemed like it would match up at all. And like it totally did. So again, when those people make lists of like, I want them to be, this height and this career and all these things, like those are fine lists to make. But then you make another list that's like, but what do you like really desire? Like what do you want? And then what do you really desire on a deeper level? And it's like, I want someone funny. I want someone creative. I want someone warm. I want someone who sees me. I want some, you know what I mean? And so of course all those lined up, and none of the first list lined up, but we all know like what matters in the end is that second list. So again, if you're struggling with a decision, really think about getting quiet, take away the voices. Again, so it's getting in touch with your body, number one, so you can feel your intuition so that you can use it. And then number two, get the voices quiet. And this one is always like really hard for those of us, a lot of women, of course, but who are a little more in the people pleasing or service. If your job is in a service industry, your role in the family has always been more the peacekeeper or people pleaser. It can be so hard to make a decision without the peanut gallery in your mind that's saying, like, you're like, oh, I know what my mom's going to say. I know what my sister's going to say. I know what my best friends are going to think. And like, it won't make sense to them. And so that's going to like stall your decision, or maybe it's going to water it down too much in a way that like it's not even recognizable to you anymore. So, really getting quiet and getting in your body, it's going to like laser focus and be the fastest way to make a decision that you're going to feel really good about. Um, in the end, again, these are for some of the bigger things and some of the smaller things too. It can serve you. It's so funny. I was in thinking about just a little detail that was a bigger thing than I thought it was. I was My wedding, as some of you guys know, was a whole situation. Again, I was in a sort of a multicultural situation. I was brought up Irish Catholic. My husband is Persian. Like his parents came in 81. And so, speaking Farsi all the time and like very culturally, something very different for me. I always tease my husband. I'm like, I would have never met you if not for the Bravo show. Now that I can't remember the name, but it's like all about Persian people in LA. And that was like so funny because I was like, oh, I think I have a little frame of reference for this whole culture. And he's always like, oh my God, because the show, of course, it's reality TV, so it's beyond ridiculous. But needless to say, the wedding planning was very rocky because, I mean, talk about different expectations and different assumptions, and not even knowing what we didn't know about each other's families' opinions. So I had gotten to the point with the florist, picking a florist. My mom and I had gone and met with one. We thought, okay, that was great. But then his mother had a relative who owned a floral shop, um, the English Rose in Georgetown. It's lovely. And so I went and met with her with my mother in law just to do kind of a comparison and thing. Anyway, we decided to go with the Persian florist, um, because already, I had to sort of walk this balance between using some input from my side and using input from his side, to keep things balanced. And it was a whole storyline on its own. But anyway, we go to this appointment and we design these florals, and it's like pretty much what I want, white and green. I had a December wedding, so it was all fine. But she had these cabbages. So I had like a big centerpiece, and there were these cabbages. And I'm like, okay, like that's cool. It's different. It's green. I'm fine. I mean, there's huge centerpieces. So like there's all the other flowers. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. And then like I go away from the meeting and I'm like waking up at night and I'm like, why the hell are there cabbages in my centerpiece? Like, I don't want cabbage. Like it was one of those things where it was like on some really obviously deep level, I was feeling like I do not want cabbages, but I couldn't. And in that moment, I was having a hard time finding my voice and figuring out what was important because, like, I was trying so much to people please and let everybody else have their moment of like what they wanted. And it was like one of those things where I was like, okay, this is like a thing with me and my mother in law. I've got to figure out, like, how do I speak up and say this? First, I had to decide, is it worth it? For many things in my wedding, I'm like, oh my gosh, no problem. Do something that I never dreamed of, but I'm okay with it. And I truly was until the cabbages. Apparently, I was just really not okay with the cabbages in the centerpiece. So I had to like honor that part of me because I knew, and this is part of my whole philosophy is whatever happens in your wedding planning, maps completely onto what's going to happen in your marriage. So I knew on some level I had to figure out a way to like address the cabbage situation. And so long story short, I called the florist and I'm like, listen, we can't do the cabbages. I called my mother-in-law and she's like, well, I don't care about that. Of course, again, I'm overthinking her opinion on it. She didn't care about them either, but I had to find my voice. And the thing about it is it's like, and decide that this is a detail that actually does matter to me. Like I am the kind of girl who grew up my whole life thinking about my centerpieces and I didn't want cabbage. So again, it's an example of like my intuition started really screaming at me and I had to decide, is this one of those like sort of battles that's worth fighting? It was. And it was great practice because I'm I have since now being married almost 7 years, like had to speak up with my mother-in-law in ways that are like, gosh, I never want to bring conflict, but like it is important to decide, okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, yes, this one does. My intuition told me it did. And now I can logically think through how do I gently explain it and solve the problem. So hopefully that gives you an example. It is usually your intuition on the big things, but sometimes the little things get you too. Don't ignore it because for me, it's really not about the cabbages. I mean, yes, it was, but also it was about learning to use my voice, find my voice. Don't let all the other people and their opinions overshadow what I really wanted. It's so easy for some people to get pushed right out of their own wedding day in terms of like how it ends up being and feeling. And that's the thing. I didn't want to go in and feel like I didn't like it. Like, what's the point of all of this? Why have this $100,000 day if you can't feel good about it? So that's one of my big messages is that like you've got to get really clean and honest and this is what this moment in your life is calling you to do. Like you've got to upgrade your operating system. You've got all these new voices in your life and pressures and situations and money is attached to things and families and opinions. And so it's like, how do you get really grounded in who you are, what works for you, and how to communicate that in a way that builds your bonds instead of trashes them. Um, and then, right, one of the things I had in my notes is like, allow yourself to want what you want. Like there's a thing about like what propels the whole world is desire. And a lot of times it's female desire. Like we're the ones who often have like the ideas and then sort of the male energy in the world sort of execute it. I think we all have both energies. Hopefully you know what I mean, but like I feel like so much of the female magic is that our desire and our vision. And sometimes we're like, I don't want to want too much. I want to, and I have learned over the years, whenever you try to like stop wanting what you want, it's never gonna, it's not gonna work. You can't put it in the box. So when again, when you're facing a decision, one of the first things you need to do is just like, what do you really want? Like let it out, let it breathe, let it be in the room with you. And then your logical brain will start kicking in, like, all right, girl, how can we get you what you want? And then that's the whole sort of fun of wedding planning and life. And then the final point on decision making, and Kat, I was thinking about you. Once you've made a decision, this goes from finding your fiance to your dress to your venue, your thing. Once you make your decision, line up with it. So many people make a decision and then spend the next 3 months questioning it, second guessing it, being unsure about it. Oh no, I saw some new thing on Instagram that we should have like had cookies and milk instead of mini burgers at like the after party. It's like you're going to make yourself crazy and all you're doing is um, getting yourself worked up and staying in a state of stress because it's a familiar place to be when really you want to be working on so many other things in your life. So when you make a decision, big or small, line up with it because you understand there are no wrong decisions. You're the one who makes it right or wrong. So you've got to have your own back. The reason we start second guessing our decisions is because we're trying to prevent future regret. The only reason you want to prevent future regret is because you're scared that you will be mad at you and punish yourself later. So you're like future tripping on like, oh my gosh, I got to change my mind because what if it isn't right? Well, what if it isn't right? Well, then I'm going to be annoyed at myself. Well, you guess what? In the future, you get to choose to be kind to yourself. It's so funny. Like I remember doing that a little bit about my dress. It's like I picked a dress that I never thought I'd wear, and then I confused myself because I'm like, I don't really like, how did I end up in this silhouette and all of these things? And then it's like, no, you picked it, you love it. And in 10 years, you can look back and be like, nice to yourself about the choice or not. But like you're the one who you're trying to protect yourself again. And in the same way you can manage your mind in the present, you'll always be there to manage your mind and be kind to yourself in the future. So I think that's one of the things I really want you guys to do. Once you make a decision, line up with it. Being lined up with your own decision is the most satisfying, peaceful thing you can do. Like, stop. It's like the dress shows always say, like, stop shopping when you buy the dress, stop dating when you have a fiance, like, stop Pinteresting when you've already gotten your, um, your theme and your vibe. Like, I know you can be a lot of things to a lot of different people. Your wedding can look 10 different, but like, stop doing that because you're only causing yourself undue stress. And just realize you can have your own back in the future. You get to craft the story about the decisions you made. So that is just one thing I always remind myself of is like, stay lined up with those decisions, and then you will stay in peace, and you will stay in confidence, and you won't add any more drama. So hopefully that sort of helps with the decision making. I want to switch gears now to a little marriage prep 101. So I I work with brides who are sort of having distress during their wedding time, but I also love working with brides and grooms when they're interested. Again, I have like a very specific philosophy that I can do marriage prep girl to girl, woman to woman, because I know just like it takes one person to ruin a relationship, it can take one person to completely like transform it and add the magic. Because again, like what we do like sets the stage. Like I just feel like each one of us is so responsible for the energy and the tone that we bring into a space. Imagine like the power you have, in your own relationship to shape the way that you guys talk to each other, the time that you spend together, the way you make decisions together. Like you have a huge force in that. So, anyway, I love doing marriage prep one on one with my brides. If they aren't struggling at all with the wedding planning, but they're a little nervous, some people are so nervous, like, especially coming from divorce. If your parents didn't have a marriage that is something you want to emulate, you can be a little nervous, like, do I have the tools? Do any of us have the tools to make a successful marriage? And that's like a scary big thing. And again, a lot of people base it on what their parents had. So they either say, I want to do what my parents did, or I want to do exactly what they didn't do. Or maybe they have an image of like, oh, my aunt and uncle, I want their marriage, or my friend's parents. They have that. Or they rely on a bunch of anecdotal advice, magazine articles, all the sort of old wives' tales, like don't go to bed angry, marry your best friend, just like platitudes. Like I'll just keep that in mind as I'm married. And I just feel like there is also science around this. Thank God. Like in the 70s and 80s, like there was a lot of good research done on what makes relationships work. And that has been like, I'm super passionate about the Gottman Institute and all of the research they've done and trying to like bring that out into the world in easy bite-sized pieces that people can understand. I don't know if you saw my Instagram this week, but I really was talking about that. So much of it, you guys, is just really based on kindness, which is, again, it's so stinking obvious. But wow, you can also see probably in your relationships now, um, it can slip away so easily. And the reason it can slip away is because you have told yourself in your mind, well, of course I love you. Like we're getting married. And so now I can like kind of be a little uglier with the way I talk to you because we already have this foundation of love. So now I'm like gonna call you a jackass and say that you're lazy because like I love you. And it's funny, you don't realize it, but that criticism or like name calling and all that harsh stuff, which again, it's really hard in the beginning to ever imagine you do that, but everybody can get pulled into that. It's very natural. And so one of the things that you want to do thinking about marriage prep is like how to just build those really good habits of like using your I statements, gently going into when you have a complaint, um, entering the conversation gently and owning your part. Be like, look, I just can't live in an apartment that is this chaotic. And I am having, a lot of anxiety around the way that you drive. And I don't know how to like feel calmer. And so can we talk about it or whatever the issue is? Own your side of the street always. And then when you own your part, the other person can lean in and try to meet you halfway. But that's all other topics. Today I want to talk about love maps because we all know we want to be married to our best friend. Keep your girlfriends, keep your girlfriends. And again, another topic, I want to put a pin in it, but your friendship with your husband is the foundation. What does that really mean though? When we're friends with someone, it's because they know us and they see us and they love us because of just who we are. And in a friendship, it's often easier because there's a lightness. When you add marriage onto it, it's like you're financially bound in a way that friends usually are not. You're living as roommates in a way that friends usually are not. You're parenting in a way that friends are not. So you add these other things, that friendship card gets like really easily pushed aside. And so one of the ways to think about the friendship in a relationship is to think of it as a love map. And a love map is like, do you have a really, really detailed picture of what your partner's inner landscape is like? Like, do you really know what's going on with him? Again, if you ask me, I'm like, yeah, I know him inside and out. Like, we're together, we've been together a year, 24/7, working from home, like, I know him. And then when I actually stop and check in with these questions that I'm about to read to you guys, I'm like, a couple of these, like, I am a little stumped and I should like check in. So a love the love map thing is something you should do at the beginning and then revisit it every once in a while. And again, it's something you can do on your own because the conversations that you'll start, like you'll naturally he'll learn more about your love map, you'll be able to make his. And the thing about love maps is usually they're really good with engaged couples because you're spending your time together and you're working towards like this big moment of your wedding and you've been dating and that's such a great intimate time of literally just building intimacy and trust and sharing your stories, your past, your present, your future. The problem with the love maps usually comes up like around that first child when all of a sudden all the energy is sucked out of the relationship and put on this child. The people with the strongest love maps make it through that sort of happiness hurdle the best. So the stronger you go in to your marriage with your love maps completely filled out, the better again that cushion is going to be for taking the bounce and taking the hits of like career change, new job, new baby, anything like those big stressors that are going to come up. Better map you guys have, you're just going to be able to glide through it so much better with your keeping your happiness level at the same level. Because you've seen those studies where they say that after the first baby, happiness plummets. It doesn't have to, but for so many people, it does because they don't have these tools. So I want to take a minute, if you guys are willing, to I'm going to like read these 20 statements and you can kind of keep track on your fingers or on a piece of paper. It's going to be true or false, and see if you have at least 10 truths. So you can just keep in mind. But it's kind of fun just to like think through these and be like, oh yeah, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, or like, oh, not good. So I'm going to read these now. And this is sort of the template for your love map. Number one, I can name my partner's best friends. I got that. I can tell you what stresses my partner is currently facing. So like what's in the back of their mind, what's keeping them up at night. I know the names of some of the people who have been irritating my partner lately. So is it, the golf caddy that's been like weird to him? Is it his boss? Is it his mom? Like who's kind of in his like annoyance category right now? I can tell you some of my partner's life dreams. Again, don't assume. Make sure you guys like really know. I'm very familiar with my partner's religious beliefs and ideas. This one's so funny because like you can think you know. Like I remember when I first met my husband, he had a book on his nightstand, The Four Agreements, which I of course had read, and then I assumed he had read, but like, and I thought we were on the same page about it all, and it was funny. I think it was like he hadn't read it yet, but anyway, don't assume. Make sure you talk through it. I can tell you about my partner's basic philosophy of life. That one is just like a never-ending conversation. So fun. I can list the relatives my partner likes the least. I think I know that one, but I would love to confirm. I know my partner's favorite music. I do. He loves to share that with me. I can list my partner's favorite three movies. I actually don't know if I've got this one right. My spouse is familiar with my current stresses. I know the three most special times in my partner's life. Again, like I think I know, but I could confirm. I can tell you the most stressful thing that happened to my partner as a child. You guys, I definitely think you want to know that one. I can list my partner's major aspirations and hopes in life. I know my partner's major worry. My partner knows who my friends are. I know what my partner would do if they suddenly won the lottery. I can tell you in detail my first impressions of my partner. Periodically, I ask my partner about his or her world right now. I feel my partner knows me pretty well. My spouse is familiar with my hopes and aspirations. So, of those 20 things, I'm so curious how you guys did. If anybody wants to unmute or put in the chat, um, if you feel like you got, I'm sure, at least 10 T's for true statements, but maybe like me, you have a couple that you would check in on. Does anybody want to share? Any of them catch you off guard?
I like the lottery one. That's pretty interesting because I don't know what he always surprises me, so I'll have to ask.
I know, right? The lottery one is funny because it's like, would they give it to would they give it to a bunch of people and like pay off loans? Like would they do some, or would they buy a house? Would they want to move? Like it is a great question. Um, Kind of curious because I don't even know exactly what I would do. But that is a fun one. It's so good. Did you get a lot of teas, Kat?
Yes, yeah, I did.
Good,
Yeah.
good. I know you guys have been having a lot of conversations about what your life will look like and what you want and stuff.
Yes, yeah. And I feel like being trapped together during a pandemic, we talk even more.
Exactly, exactly. And again, that's the thing with these love maps. It's like right now, it probably feels on the easy side. I just love to get them in front of engaged couples because when you do have like that rocky moment of feeling a little disconnected or feeling like you're arguing or feeling like you don't know what's going on, it's just an easy like place to just to revisit and just go through in your own head. It's like one of these things where it's like stuff like this seems so cheesy and obvious, and then you don't if it was, we wouldn't have this huge divorce rate, so many unhappy couples. It's like we really do have to bring it back to basics sometimes. And again, I'm the kind of person, it's like I've read obviously I've took all the trainings in therapy, life coaching. I have read every self-help book there is. And yet I find myself being like, I need a reminder. And mostly I need a reminder in time, in like the stressful times, and when you just don't have anything left to give. Sometimes we just start treating our spouse, our fiance, we're the roughest on the people we love, right? Like we all know you can sort of like be your worst with the people who are closest to you. I think we do that with our parents a lot. We like save our worst behavior for them. I think that can also transfer onto your spouse. You sort of save your most fun, loving, outgoing self for the times where when you go out with your friends or at work or, with even with your in-laws. And then when you're home, you're just like grumpy and can just kind of let out the sort of darker, lazier side. And I'll never forget, I saw a quote years ago that was like, treat your friends like family and your family like friends. So it's like this interesting twist on it where it's like sometimes like get yourself together a little for your family, whether it's your mom or your spouse, like present a little bit more polished and a little more um, together and sweet and giving to them, and let your hair down and your frustrations out, spill out with your friends, because maybe they don't get to see that intimate side of you. Maybe they only get to see the part of you at the cocktail party who's saying how great everything is. And they would feel such a stronger bond if you kind of showed them that um, less perfect side. Whereas with your family, they'd love to see the side of you that is a little more like thoughtful and gracious and like it's just a funny quote that I've always had in my mind. Um, Treat your friends like family and your family like friends. Like sometimes just reversing your sort of operating mode can be really refreshing and sort of spice up both types of relationship, the ones that are you're super tight and the ones that are a little um, more social. And so yeah, I think that's like a one fun way to look at it. So I that is what I wanted to present with you today, the drama-free decision making and these love maps, which are super fun, easy way to make sure you really, really know your spouse. And I think a lot of people, again, it's so 70s, like those dating shows they used to have where you answer the question. It's like there really is something to that. I think sometimes love and that initial attraction can like blind us to really having some of the bigger conversations. Like, I cannot tell you guys, there are people who are engaged that do not know whether their spouse wants to have children. Like they never, like they think they know, but they never really talked about it. And not only like want to have kids, but like when? Like like it's funny, like I was talking to this couple and it's like, well, I know she does, and so we'll figure it out. And it's like, okay, but it's also really, really nice to talk about it because you never know. Sometimes these guys are just like, well, I assume like, we'll be married a year and then we'll get pregnant, not realizing the woman has a very specific idea of like, okay, we're going to get married at 27. And then I want to really go hard on my career until I'm 32. And then I want to think about getting pregnant. But like, if you don't say it, it's funny. Sometimes the men are not tuned into timelines in the same way that women are, and it can all be fine, but we don't realize what we're not saying sometimes. And so I think again, these kind of questions and exercises, and they don't even have to be. I'm so not like go do this exercise kind of girl. I'm more just like have it in the back of your mind so that you can like just sneak it into your everyday conversations in life. Um, if like sitting down and like going through questions doesn't feel like natural to you as a couple, all you need is to have these things in the back of your mind. Do I know my husband's friends, his stresses, his like fun music and movie taste, his dreams, his goals, his life philosophy, how he feels about religion? Obviously add in there how you feel about kids, what's going on, just knowing, just really knowing someone, because this is the point really of having a partner in life, is to be seen and known on like the deepest level. Like I always called it um when I was always single and dating forever, I'm like, I just want a witness. Where's my witness? I need a witness to my life. Like, don't you want someone who sees like your growth and sees what you've overcome and sees what you've gone through? And I think, even getting married sort of a little bit later in life, I was like, oh, they missed so much. Like they can't see, but that's what these conversations are all about. And like being able, you can still sort of backfill the whole story and flesh it out so that your partner really can know you in that sort of past, present, future way. Um, and not just getting stuck in the present moment of what you two are dealing with right now, but like keep them anchored in your dreams. Like those quiet desires that we talked about early that are in your mind, does your fiance know about them? Because you know what, if they did, they might have like lots of ways to support you and want to come in if you share them. Sometimes we don't share them because they feel like a burden, or they feel like impossible, or they don't feel relevant to right now, or they feel like they'd be scaring someone by asking them too much. You know, some women have a desire to be a stay-at-home mom, but like they can't see how that would possibly work with the financial situation you have right now. So maybe they don't want to say it because maybe it'll put too much pressure on him, and maybe we'll just stop and see how it goes. Or maybe you just throw it out there like, well, here's like a thing that would be great if that could ever happen, but of course, willing to work within the reality of what is workable. So again, I ramble. I want to leave time for a little Q&A. It's 11.